The Spectre. The DC universe has a lot of heavy hitters, but none of them carried the same kind of weight as the Spectre. He wasn't just another costumed hero, he was God's vengeance made flesh, a cosmic executioner who could rewrite reality, bend time, or erase entire civilizations without breaking a sweat. At full strength, his power was limitless, and for a while he became the ultimate trump card whenever DC wanted to raise the stakes. The problem came fast. How do you build tension in a universe when the answer to every crisis is sitting in the wings, ready to snap entire armies out of existence? Readers knew that as soon as the Spectre entered the picture, the fight was already over. Villains like Darkseid or Anti-Monitor might have felt unstoppable on paper, but none of them truly stood a chance if the Spectre decided they were guilty. That kind of power didn't just break storylines, it drained them of drama. So DC made a decision. They started pulling him out of the spotlight and laying down restrictions. The Spectre needed a human host to keep him grounded, and even then, he couldn't act freely without divine approval. Instead of showing up in regular storylines, he became a figure reserved for rare cosmic-level events, the sort of moments where you expected the universe to collapse if he didn't step in. It was the only way to keep him from overshadowing everyone else. Over time, that nerf transformed the Spectre from a recurring powerhouse into a mythic presence. He was no longer the star of the show, but the shadow that loomed over it. The one above all. Marvel has plenty of cosmic giants, Galactus, the Living Tribunal, Eternity, but above all of them sits a figure that rewrites the hierarchy completely, the one above all. He's Marvel's supreme being, the architect of every timeline, every multiverse, every rule the others live under. His power isn't measured in feats, he is the power. That kind of status might sound incredible, but it created a nightmare for storytelling. With a character who controls time, fate, and every dimension in existence, the tension in any story evaporates. Why worry about Thanos collecting stones or Galactus swallowing worlds when the literal god of the Marvel Universe exists above it all? If the one above all ever stepped into the arena, every battle would end before it started. Marvel's solution was simple: keep him out of the game. The one above all makes rare, almost symbolic appearances, a glimpse in the background, a guiding word to a lost hero, or a reminder that the universe has order beyond chaos. He doesn't fight, he doesn't intervene, and he definitely doesn't get pulled into regular arcs. Instead, he hangs over Marvel's world like a myth, too untouchable to risk turning into a regular player. That choice turned the one above all into something bigger than a character. He became a presence, a reminder to fans that yes, there is an ultimate hand steering the Marvel ship, but no, you'll never see him trading punches with Doctor Doom or shaking hands with Spider-Man. By limiting him this way, Marvel kept their stories grounded, even when the stakes went cosmic. Franklin Richards. Marvel has plenty of powerful heroes, but Franklin Richards was on a level that made even cosmic beings nervous. From childhood, he had abilities that shattered the laws of the universe. He could create brand new realities out of nothing, bring the dead back to life without effort, and twist existence in ways that left even Galactus unsettled. The problem was never whether Franklin could win a fight. The real issue was what writers were supposed to do with him. When a character can invent universes in his spare time, the entire concept of danger breaks down. Villains stopped feeling like threats because Franklin could erase their work with a single thought. Battles lost meaning, tension disappeared, and storytelling hit a wall. Marvel's response was decisive. Instead of letting Franklin stay at full god tier, they scaled him back. Over the years, his cosmic abilities were toned down. His omnipotence turned into potential rather than constant reality. He remained part of the Fantastic Four's story, but the version who could casually rewrite creation was quietly removed. That decision kept the Marvel Universe balanced and allowed other heroes to matter again. Superman Prime 1 million. Superman has always stood as the symbol of strength in DC Comics, but one version of him pushed past every limit the character ever had. Superman Prime 1 million wasn't another alternate take or Elseworld story. He was Clark Kent evolved across millennia. After spending 15,000 years inside the core of the sun, absorbing endless amounts of energy, he returned as something beyond recognition, a living god. At this stage, he wasn't worried about bullets, kryptonite, or any of the weaknesses that gave his stories tension. Superman Prime had the power to reshape reality itself. He could control time, craft new life, and stand invulnerable against any threat. Age, disease, or damage couldn't touch him. For readers, it felt like DC had unveiled the final form of their greatest hero. For writers, it created a problem that couldn't be ignored. With a Superman who could never be challenged, every conflict started to collapse. How do you build suspense when the solution to any crisis is a being who's literally unstoppable? DC's answer was to treat Superman Prime as a rare figure, a myth written into the lore rather than a character used in everyday stories. He was kept in the background, pulled out only for cosmic-scale events or referenced as part of Superman's unimaginable legacy, the Beyonder. In the mid-1980s, Marvel dropped a character so overwhelming that the entire universe tilted on its axis. The Beyonder arrived in Secret Wars and immediately set himself apart as something more than a cosmic powerhouse. He could reshape reality with a thought, change the fundamental laws of existence, and toss around figures like Galactus as if they were nothing. For a moment, it looked like Marvel had introduced the final word in power. That scale of ability turned into a crisis almost instantly. Once the Beyonder was established, the rest of Marvel's cast shrank in comparison. Spider-Man, Iron Man, even the Avengers as a team felt meaningless standing next to him. The more stories he appeared in, the more obvious it became. No villain could matter and no hero could triumph if the Beyonder was in play. Marvel's solution wasn't a single fix. They rewrote him over and over. His god-tier omnipotence was scaled back, his origin shifted, his presence diminished. Across different storylines, the Beyonder went from being the supreme being behind reality to a strange, inhuman mutant experiment. Each change stripped away pieces of what once made him untouchable. Eventually, the version who dominated Secret Wars was gone, replaced with watered-down interpretations that never carried the same impact. Phantom Stranger. Among DC's roster of mysterious figures, none carries the same weight of secrecy as the Phantom Stranger. He isn't tied to a single city like Batman, and he isn't part of a traditional team lineup. He drifts in and out of the universe, showing up when supernatural chaos threatens to tip the balance. His powers were vast and undefined, but his true mystery was where he came from. When Phantom Stranger first appeared in the early 1960s, DC didn't play it safe with his backstory. The comics strongly hinted that he wasn't just some unknown drifter of the cosmos. He was Judas Iscariot, the biblical figure who betrayed Jesus Christ, condemned by divine judgment to wander the earth for eternity. This twist gave the character instant gravity, a fallen figure cursed with endless life, seeking redemption he could never find. That angle, however, created a massive problem. Tying a new superhero to one of the most infamous religious figures in history risked offending readers and sparking backlash. DC realized quickly that this version of the origin was far too controversial to sustain. Instead of rewriting Judas into a recurring presence, the company decided to erase the connection entirely. The backstory was dropped, the references disappeared, and Phantom Stranger was recast as a true enigma. Since then, his origins have remained deliberately vague. Later stories toyed with different interpretations: a punished soul, an eternal wanderer, a cosmic guardian, but none were set in stone. That mystery became the leash around his neck, keeping him from being too defined, too grounded, or too controversial. Black Winter. Marvel has had its share of cosmic threats, but in 2020's Thor storyline, a new name entered the mix that made Galactus himself look small. That name was Black Winter. This was a force of nature, a cosmic ender that didn't stop at planets. It consumed entire universes, erasing realities completely and leaving nothing behind. Even Galactus admitted that his own universe had been devoured by the Black Winter, and that's what drove him into ours. For a character who was already the ultimate predator of worlds, being cast as prey set the tone. Black Winter was the final buzzer, the thing even Marvel's gods ran from. The sheer scale of this entity immediately created problems for the story. If Black Winter had stayed around, no hero or villain could have mattered anymore. Thor, Hulk, or even Thanos would have been footnotes next to a being that erased multiverses with ease. Marvel made sure that never happened. Within the same storyline where it was introduced, Thor confronted Black Winter and ended its reign, sealing it away before it could overwhelm the entire cosmic order. That quick removal wasn't sloppy writing, it was survival. Black Winter was too destructive to keep as a recurring character. Letting it linger would have broken the scale of Marvel forever. Instead, it became a one-arc monster, a terrifying glimpse of what lies beyond Galactus, and then gone. Fans remember the Black Winter not for years of continuity, but for the way it arrived like a storm, tore through Marvel's lore, and was contained almost immediately. It showed what happens when you create a villain bigger than the sandbox you've built. You get rid of it fast before it swallows the entire story whole. Dr. Manhattan. When Alan Moore introduced Dr. Manhattan in Watchmen, he wasn't designed to fit the mold of a classic superhero. John Osterman stepped into a nuclear chamber accident and came out as something completely new, a glowing blue figure with absolute control over matter itself. He could disassemble objects atom by atom, rebuild them in new forms, and view time all at once. The scope of his power wasn't limited to one world. With a thought, he could erase entire universes. That level of ability turned him into one of the most intimidating characters ever created in comics, but it also created a unique kind of problem. Manhattan wasn't interested in saving the day or fighting villains. His growing detachment from humanity meant that morality, mortality, and conflict all looked insignificant from his perspective. The more his powers grew, the less sense traditional storytelling made around him. DC eventually folded him into mainstream continuity through major arcs like Flashpoint and Doomsday Clock. On paper, it sounded like the ultimate crossover, a god tier being shaking the foundations of the DC universe. In practice, it broke the balance. How could Batman, Wonder Woman, or Superman carry weight when Dr. Manhattan could see every possible outcome and rewrite the rules at any time? Writers had no choice but to step in. Manhattan's appearances became limited, and his power was scaled back from omnipotence to something more symbolic. He stopped being the unstoppable center of a story and shifted into a narrative device. The Sentry. When Marvel unveiled the Sentry, they weren't being subtle. Robert Reynolds was engineered to be their answer to Superman, a shining figure with power on a scale no one else could match. His strength was measured as the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns, and for a while it looked like he might redefine what it meant to be Marvel's top-tier hero. He was faster, stronger, and more indestructible than nearly anyone in the lineup. But the real twist wasn't in the muscles or the cosmic feats. Inside, Reynolds lived the Void, a monstrous presence that embodied all his fear and instability. Every time the Sentry's light shone brighter, the Void threatened to break through and drag everything into darkness. The result was a hero who was as terrifying to his allies as he was to his enemies. This instability turned the Sentry from Marvel's golden hope into a constant problem for the writers. He overshadowed entire teams when used at full power, and when the Void showed up, the story risked spiraling into cosmic annihilation every time. Balance was impossible. Either the Sentry was unbeatable or he was the apocalypse waiting to happen. Marvel's solution came in Siege number 4. During the climactic battle, the Void fully took control, forcing Thor himself to step in. The God of Thunder struck Reynolds down, obliterating the Sentry once and for all. It was the only way to bring closure to a character who had become too unstable to remain in Marvel's world. Since then, the Sentry has returned in different forms, but never again as the unstoppable center of the universe, King Kull. During the golden age of comics, DC introduced a villain who had the raw power to rival Shazam at his peak. His name was King Kull, a prehistoric warrior brought into the modern age and gifted with the same mystical energy that fueled Earth's mightiest champions. Where Shazam represented hope and justice, Kull was destruction incarnate, a force driven by hatred for humanity and a lust for absolute domination. The character wasn't some one-off threat. King Kull wielded tremendous strength, commanded storms of magical lightning, and threw himself into battles against the biggest names in DC's lineup. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Shazam himself were forced to stand together just to contain him. His presence tilted the balance of power every time he appeared, making Shazam look less like a champion and more like a shadow to his own adversary. That imbalance didn't sit well with DC's direction. Unlike Black Adam, a rival with complexity and a place in Shazam's mythology, King Kull had no shades of gray. He was pure malice, a destructive archetype who left no room for nuance. Over time, editors began to treat him as a liability. The solution wasn't to tone him down or keep him around as a recurring foe, it was to remove him altogether. Gradually, King Kull disappeared from stories. His name was stripped from continuity, and the role of Shazam's great adversary shifted toward Black Adam, who could embody both menace and depth. Kull's erasure was a deliberate act to clear space for a rival that could carry the mythos forward without overpowering its hero. Today, King Kull survives mostly as a footnote in DC's archives, a villain so overwhelming and so one-dimensional that the company chose to bury him completely. And that's it. Some of these heroes were nerfed, others erased, and a few turned into myths so the stories could survive. But here's the real question. If every one of them returned tomorrow at full power, no limits, no restrictions, who would actually rule the multiverse and who would collapse it first? Comment down below. Leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification for more amazing videos like this one.